Hey, thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com. I'm Derek Wetmore. He's Matthew Coller. We're going to talk to you about the Minnesota Vikings, who are 3-0 this week in front of the Viking ship, right?
We've gotten closer to the ship each time.
You guys said how much you loved the ship. You said thank you for doing it in the front of the ship. But please, for the love of God, get some better sound quality. So we're trying something out this week. Let us know how it goes. Before we jump into the video, we're going to talk about the Vikings' run game, sans Adrian Peterson, and the kinds of things that they're doing to adjust for his loss. We're also going to talk about Sam Bradford and what's coming up for the Giants. Before we do, please subscribe to our channel, 1500 ESPN Twin Cities on YouTube. It helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it.
You'll see more of the ship if you do.
So much ship. Matthew, you wrote about Adrian Peterson just before the Vikings played the Panthers, actually, and about how the Vikings are planning to adjust for it. I thought one interesting thing that you pointed out was kind of the secret weapon. How does that play into what the Vikings are doing, not only against the Giants, but for the rest of the season as well?
Well, the secret weapon isn't really that secret if you go back and watch football in the 1990s, which would be their fullback, Zach Line. They've played Zach Line somewhere in between 15 and 20 plays each week. And I know that the fullback is probably the least exciting thing that you could ever come up with in terms of an offense, but it's something that a lot of teams don't have anymore and they don't really use. And what I noticed was, going back to the Packers game, that they like to use it as a little bit of a change-up, a little bit of something that teams just don't prepare very much for.
Sure.
And when the running game is struggling, they can bring in Zach Line, and he can offer kind of a different look and change things up a bit. And I noticed against the Packers, they did it for really one drive, and he had a couple of nice blocks, one of them on Clay Matthews, and that was actually where Adrian Peterson had started to get going in that game. Up until the point that they brought in the fullback, he had done absolutely nothing, and I think we'll see that a lot going forward, and we did see that against Carolina as well, that they had a few successful runs using Zach Line.
Now, to be fair, yes, you wrote about the fullback, and yes, I was part of the piece, but of course that's not their only solution.
No, that's the only thing they're doing.
No,
they're
that's it.
Use
We're done here.
Use the fullback.
Shut her down. We're going to go find somebody. You also wrote at length about Jerick McKinnon. And Jerick McKinnon, of course, is a big part of the equation going forward. Mike Zimmer says he's not sure if Ronnie Hillman will play this week. I guarantee you he's not going to tip his hand. We're going to have to wait and see. We'll probably know better Friday, Saturday to know who the Vikings are going to suit up on Monday Night Football against the Giants. But let's just stick to McKinnon for the point of this video, because he is probably going to be the feature back for the rest of the season. You cut up some college film from when he was at Georgia Southern and that sort of thing. What have you seen in your short time here in Minnesota about Jerick McKinnon that impresses you?
Well, two things. First of all, his speed and explosiveness, I think, is exceptional. I mean, it really screams being like a top back in the league, that, you know, maybe with Adrian Peterson, he's taking up so many of the carries of the first couple of weeks that we really just didn't see McKinnon a lot. But when Peterson was out in 2014, McKinnon had about an 8-game stretch. This was when he wasn't injured, where he was the feature back, and he performed really well. But he also offers not only speed and quickness and vision, which all the great running backs have, but he also has something else to his game, and that's the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and even line up as a slot wide receiver, which is funny because he didn't catch the ball a lot in college. You mentioned showing some of those college highlights in a game where Georgia Southern beat Florida. But in the NFL, they've noticed that he's pretty good at catching the ball out of the backfield. He only had one catch last week, but I expect to see a lot more of that, and that's a wrinkle that they did not have with Adrian Peterson.
What I thought was interesting was his college career. The tape that you showed from Florida, he was kind of like a scat back, running back, where he was using Wildcat formation a lot, and if people have asked me on Twitter this week, more Wildcat with McKinnon? Probably not. The Vikings aren't going to tailor their offense that much. They still want to plan it around Sam Bradford and the pass-catching weapons they have. But I thought it was interesting that he was used sort of in that Wildcat, where he was listed as a triple-threat quarterback, actually, at Georgia Southern when they ran kind of that Wildcat kind of deal. So it was interesting that he can not only catch the ball out of the backfield, but he has some of this experience seeing the lanes from a different angle maybe that Peterson would have seen when he was at Oklahoma or with the Vikings. So I'm just curious to see if the running game changes at all. But reading some of the quotes from running backs coach Kevin Stefanski from your piece, Matthew, he made it sound like the Vikings want to use the same runs just inserting McKinnon rather than Peterson.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But then again, I think what we've seen out of this Vikings team recently, starting with Mike Zimmer and then trickling on down, is using players to their strengths.
Sure, yeah.
Right? I think Kyle Rudolph on the offensive side might be the best example of this through 3 weeks, is that he's become a really big receiving option for Sam Bradford. And I think in the past they've wanted him to be a lot of blocking and then being a receiving option. And this year, whether it's because Peterson is out or whatever change it might be in the quarterback, he's become their number 2 target and a go-to guy. And I think that's evidence of just playing to somebody's strengths. And I think they have to do the same thing with Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon did not do the best job, I would say, blocking against the blitz the other day, but he does have versatility in his game. I wouldn't expect to see much Wildcat because I think the Wildcat is probably dead.
Yeah.
But
Tony Sperano, though, he's the offensive line
But
coach.
Here's an interesting thing that I noticed.
Not having it?
No. On tape, though, I noticed that they split him out wide a few times and had him run deep. And that's something that if you're an opponent, I mean, maybe you're preparing a little bit for, but at least you're forcing them to prepare for the fact that he might go into the slot, he might go all the way wide, and they might throw a bomb to him at some point. Or he can do a lot of the same things that Peterson could do. Does have great vision and patience, which Peterson wasn't showing in those first couple of games.
Sure.
And I thought, even though the yards per carry weren't good, for most of the game, McKinnon was effective when he had the ball.
Against the Panthers, you're talking,
Yeah, against the Panthers, right. I mean, they get to the fourth quarter, and they're trying to protect that lead, and their defense is playing so well. They weren't going to take many risks with Sam Bradford.
Sure.
Up until the fourth quarter, he's averaging 4+ yards per carry, and then he ends with 2-something because they were preparing for the run, and he gets shut down.
I am curious. Now, there's a lot of talk, and there's going to continue to be a lot of talk this week about the run game and preparing for the run game. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and we'll get to Sam Bradford in a second, too. This sort of dovetails into a conversation about Bradford because the run game, to me, it's important, and it's going to be a big thing. The Vikings need to step forward. Their offensive line needs to be better. Their backs need to do a better job. As you mentioned, outside of those 3 quarters against the Panthers, we haven't seen much from the running game, even when Adrian Peterson was in. So the one thing that I don't want to get lost in this conversation is that so much of their run game this year is going to play off the pass, not the inverse. I think we grew up watching football talking about establish the runs so you can hit the pass. I think this Minnesota Vikings team in 2016 is the exact opposite. You talk Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph. Eventually we're going to see Laquan Treadwell at some point. And they brought in Sam Bradford to be the quarterback, not so he could hand off the ball. They're expecting Sam Bradford to throw as soon as he's comfortable fully in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that football in 2016 is establish the pass, and then you'll be able to run the ball.
Exactly.
That's for one. I mean, the other part of this is the Vikings offense needs to come up with some big plays.
Sure.
I mean, whether it's on the run or whether it's through the air, they have not had very many bombs down the field or short passes that turn into big plays. I mean, I can remember 2 pretty much the entire season so far.
And
both
had
of them
little drops too. That was a small issue with whether it's Thielen or Charles Johnson.
Right, Johnson had the drop on what would have been a really big play. But when you're talking about plays that go for 20 yards or more, they have not had very many. And that's one of the reasons that they rank 30th in the league in yards per play. Now, the one thing I would say is right now they would have the worst running offense just about of all time. And I'm just going to go ahead and guess that they will not have the worst running offense of all time. They faced 3 teams that have very good nose tackles, very good front lines, and not every team is going to be that good.
Sure.
And I expect them to start to break out. This week might be a good time for it. Last week, Kirk Cousins did pretty well, and Washington offense did pretty well against the Giants. This could be where we see some of those big breakout plays. So far, I think they've been very conservative and then struggled on the run, so you haven't seen them. But this week, we could get a little more of it.
Our buddy Arif Hassan wrote a column analyzing all the advanced stats and stuff so far through 3 weeks for the Vikings. You can find that at 1500ESPN.com. His basic contention, Matthew, and I'll run it by you, see if you agree or disagree. The defense has been great, and there's a reason we're not even talking about them. It's not because they're not good. It's because what more can you say? This defense has been spectacular. We've talked in the past about them being potentially the best in the NFL right now. So with that, though, Arif's contention is that because the defense has been so good, it's sort of covering up. Their defense and special teams, actually, I should say, have been so good, sort of covering up for the fact that they've got a pretty gross offense right now, that it's not up to snuff, basically. Is that a concern going forward, or do you see the offense being able to take a step forward and carry a little bit of its own weight in the next couple games.
I don't know if I would quite go that it's been grotesque. The yards per play is good, but when you adjust the yards per play, now this is getting super nerdy, so I apologize for that.
Geeky.
When you adjust the yards per play, this is Football Perspective did this, and to include turnovers and sacks against, they're in the top third of the league when it comes to the offensive production because they have not been hurt by turnovers. In fact, Sean Hill and Sam Bradford, 0 turnovers from the quarterback position, which, again, would be another one of those things that's not going to last forever. But if their quarterbacks aren't turning the ball over, you kind of get some of that back even if you're not producing first down after first down after first down. Anyway, to that point, though, I would say through these 3 games, yes, that is correct, that the great defense and special teams and some luck, too. Mariota throws it right to Eric Kendricks, right to him. I mean, that's
And
luck.
how about the Trey Waynes interception on Sunday versus Cam Newton? He has one down the sideline and just underthrows it a little bit. Waynes, to his credit, makes a good play on the ball, but you don't see Cam make that throw all the time as he was headed into halftime.
You are not going to get turnovers and have a turnover ratio at this rate for an entire season.
Sure.
Now, with that being said, though, you would expect the offense to improve. Like I said about the running game, it's not going to be the worst running game of all time, is my guess. They're averaging about a yard less than the worst team in the league last year. I mean, that's just not going to continue to happen.
Put your money where your mouth is, Matthew?
The other thing, yes, I would bet on that. Stone cold locks here in front of the ship.
It's done.
But anyway, so I would not expect that. But also, like, Sam Bradford, I mean, he's still learning the offense, right? I mean, like, it's almost like we've just forgotten because he's got a good quarterback rating and has performed really good in one game and then really good for the second half of another game. We've forgotten that he just got here and that there is still more room for growth. And if they get anything out of any other wide receiver other than Stephon Diggs, I mean, you could see this offense growing. So it's a little bit of, yes, the defense will come down a little bit, but I think the offense will go up a little bit.
Sure.
Not going to go 16-0, but I think you wouldn't say, oh, this 3-0 is a total fluke.
16-0. You say it's not
That's what I'm saying. Stone cold locks.
2 stone cold locks in one video.
Bet your ship on it.
Yeah.
16-0.
That's all I have for the Giants game.
I'll never do that again. I'm sorry for that.
I was just trying to move on right past it. Just keep trucking right on through. But what are you going to do? You know, there's some things that are hard to overcome.
Yeah, can't take it back.
No, it's already too late. We can't edit it out. I mean, we could, but we're not going to.
No.
So, if you like these videos for some reason, I imagine it's mostly just my family and Matthew, your family, now still watching at this point. But if you are, it means you enjoy the Vikings Insight. Check out more Vikings Insight videos at 1500 ESPN Twin Cities on YouTube. And while you're there, please subscribe to our channel. It helps us out. It helps get our videos shared with more people. That'd be fantastic. For Matthew Coller, I promise he'll be on better behavior next week. I'm Derek Wetmore.
I'm actually not sorry at all.
We'll still be in front of the ship. You can get that all the time. Don't you worry. That's another stone cold lock. You can take that one all the way to the piggy bank. We'll be back after Monday night's game against the Giants, breaking it all down with some football.
Football.
Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.